a small and intimate group tonight, but we're going to still use the mic because we are recording this so that the rest of our Falcon families who couldn't make it tonight are able to view it, and then also we're going to share this with other campuses throughout the district. So thank you so much for being here tonight for our second flexible event. As we kind of talked about at the first session, if you were at the first session, we were kind of soft launching our parent engagement initiative for this year, and then we will have a full launch starting in August next year. So there is going to be a survey at the end if there are other topics or sessions that you would like to see. Please make sure that you give us all of your feedback so we can use that when we are kind of crafting our timeline for next year. If you don't know who I am, my name is Danielle Prince. I'm one of the assistant principals here at Fort Settlement, and it is my pleasure to introduce Heather Lambert to you. So I'm going to read a little bit about her. Heather Lambert is a licensed professional counselor supervisor, educator, and founder of Clear Hope Counseling and Wellness Center. After 17 years in public education, she set out in 2017 to meet the growing mental health needs in the community, driven by her belief that no one should hurt alone. Today, Heather leads a team serving thousands of individuals and partnering with school districts across the greater Houston area to provide on-campus mental health support and trauma-informed training. She is also a best-selling author, served on the Texas House Bill 906 Mental Health Task Force, and was very recently, as of last week, named the 2026 Houston SBA Women-Owned Business of the Year. So without further ado, please welcome Heather Lambert. Thank you. That means I get to write an essay, right? You know, that's what those awards mean. But my pleasure to be with you guys tonight. I am the mom of 4 kids. Yes, 4. So my life is a riddle. I was only pregnant 2 times, and I have 4 kids. Any guesses? I do have twins. And my final daughter came to us through adoption. So I have a singleton, I have twins, and then I have my very last high school senior who will be graduating in just a few weeks. So it's been my pleasure to be a public school educator and to be a mom of public school kiddos for the last 29 years. So I do not know what I'm going to do next year when I don't have to go to meet the teacher, when I don't have to buy school supplies. But I tell you what, this journey as a parent goes by so fast. I know it might not feel like that when you're parenting junior high students. No offense, junior high students. But hold on, because time speeds up so quickly. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about students who are gifted or students who are high achievers. Sometimes our gifted students are not high achievers, and sometimes our high achieving students are gifted. So we're going to talk a little bit about stress, finding balance, and resilience. So this training is for you as a parent, but I hope that there's some takeaways that you can take and apply just to your personal life. Because sometimes, I'm not going to make any eye contact when I say this, but sometimes high-achieving children are birthed to high-achieving parents. So some of the strategies might help you as well. So first, let's look at the difference between a high-achieving student and a GT or gifted student. So high achievers learn easily, whereas gifted learners are inventors of ideas. Sometimes they're not learning because they're not actually paying attention. High achievers love the rules, and gifted learners want the purpose of the assignment. It needs to have value or meaning for me to invest in it fully. High achievers need 6 to 8 repetitions for mastery, and gifted learners really learn and retain information by discussing in detail or elaborating or expanding upon the ideas. High achievers work really hard, and gifted learners really thrive on complexity and ambiguity. So sometimes they'll complicate things that are really simple just so they can get some intellectual stimulation. If you are a parent of a true GT child, sometimes you might think this child is going to end up on the news because of things that they say or the way that they think, but that is just their complex thinking and how their brain needs to have that stimulation so they stimulate it frequently with their own thoughts. High achievers answer the questions, and gifted learners prefer older students or adults that can help have more stimulating conversation.
But sometimes gifted students are fairly socially isolated because they just don't feel like they have other students on their campus or their community who are like them or who think like them. So they might gravitate toward older students, which might scare you to death, or they might gravitate toward or prefer to spend their time with adults. So you're trying to arrange play dates, you're trying to have social outings, and they are over there talking to the parents instead of talking to their peers. So I want to ask you this question, just as a foundation for our training tonight, because I've met with a lot of parents over my long career in K-12 education and now as a clinician, and very frequently parents say to me, I just want my child to be successful. We all want that, right? But I bet if I just went down the aisle tonight and asked each of you to define success for me, we would get, however many people there are in the room, say there are 35 or 40 of us, we would get 35 or 40 different definitions of success. Well, this can be highly troubling for high-achieving and GT students. Do your children know what your expectations are? Do they know how you define success? And are you ready for me to do a super counselory thing? Do you know their definition of success? Because I have a feeling it might be a little bit different than your definition of success. It might be something like finding a romantic interest. I know they're in junior high, but that can start to be part of their thought. It might be hoping that the popular student in the class sits by them or chooses them. It might be hoping that the teacher acknowledges the hard work that they've been putting into a project. It might be that on Friday nights, they always have an invitation that involves some type of social interaction. Do you know how your child defines success? Because that is vitally important. So keep that in mind as we go through the training. We're going to talk about educating the whole child. So very frequently we think about, as parents who are sometimes also gifted or high-achieving parents, when we have high-achieving or gifted students, we very frequently think about their academic needs. We make sure they're academically stimulated. We probably, before you even enrolled them in junior high, you started thinking about the track they were going to be in high school. You would make sure they take all the advanced classes. You would make sure that they're challenged, that you do some outside enrichment activities. You definitely want to help them choose their electives that will help really stimulate their intellectual development. Because brain development tells us this is a really important time for your students' brains to be challenged. But that's not the whole child. It's important, but it's not the only part that's important. So if we're going to educate the whole child, we have to think about their social needs. Again, a huge part of their measure of success might include social success. It might include being accepted into some social group. It might include being invited onto a team or onto a club. It might include being elected or nominated to a leadership position or a popularity position. What is their definition of social success? Then also their emotional needs. We have to think about your child's ability to regulate their emotions and care well for their emotional health. I know every single morning when my son was in junior high, I had to ask this question. Any moms with junior high boys in here? Okay, maybe this isn't your son's. But every morning at junior high, there were two questions that I had to ask before he left the house. They were hygiene questions, but were they, moms?
Make it a brush or
That's it. Yeah, so you're boy moms, right? The question is, did you put on the deodorant and did you brush your teeth? Now, my son happens to have a twin sister. I never asked his twin sister that question, right? Because they have very unique and different needs. But how often, before our students leave the house in the morning, do we do an emotional check-in? Hey, how are you feeling today? Any anxiety, worry, sadness, concerns? Just want to check in with you. And don't do this. This is free. This is not included in my training. I just thought of this. But at the end of the day, when your kids come home, do not say, how was your day? Because what are they going to say? Fine. So we've got to ask more open-ended questions. What did you do today that was academically stimulating? What friends did you talk to today? What friends talked to you? Emotionally, what was emotionally difficult or challenging for you today? Did you have any emotional setbacks today? Were there any moments when you felt completely overwhelmed today? How did you make it through that? What did you do? This is whole child education. Then, of course, physical. I just had this talk. I ran home really quick between appointments to head out here, and I ran in and asked my high school senior, did you walk? And she said, the dog, yes. Because physical activity is so important for mental wellness, for emotional wellness, for physical wellness. And although she has screen time limits on her phone, yes, she is a senior, and she has screen time limits on her phone, she would like to come home and sit on the sofa and do what for the rest of the night?
Nothing.
Probably watch video after video after video after video. So all of this is an important part of educating the whole child. So now I want to expand the question just a little bit from success to wellness. So now we're going to ask you to consider this question. Is my child successful and is my child well? You ready? So you probably already know this, the difference between IQ and EQ or EI. IQ is the number that measures intelligence. Very difficult to change IQ by much, right? We can change it a little bit, maybe 10 points, 15 points across our life span. What are the two ways that we can increase our IQ? You guys know? I bet you know this. What is it? Learn a second or third or fourth language and learn to play a musical instrument. Both of those have been demonstrated to actually increase IQ, but what about EQ or EI, emotional intelligence? It's the ability to perceive, interpret, demonstrate, control, and use emotions to communicate with and relate to others effectively and constructively. I have a high EQ or EI. That's why at some point in this meeting already, you're like, oh, Heather, I felt that. Well, that was by design, right? Because I know that you'll remember only about 50% of what you hear, but you'll remember about 80% of what you hear and feel. So I'm using EI to intentionally communicate with you through an emotional medium. Now think about that. Is that a part of your definition for success? Your child's emotional intelligence and their ability to connect with people in highly effective ways so that they're memorable when they go into maybe they go into a college interview or a job interview. Of course, we know they have an IQ that's high, but have we thought about their EQ and their ability to read, understand, and contribute to an emotional atmosphere in a meeting, in a leadership setting, in a social setting? So here's the struggle. We want our students to be successful. That's here in the middle. So how do we find balance between their academic needs and their social emotional needs? Because high performance does not necessarily equal emotional resilience. Right? It would be great if it did. If every high-performing person in the world had emotional resilience, we probably wouldn't even have any need for news reporting. We certainly wouldn't have very much stimulation through social media, right? So what we have to consider as we're defining success for our children is we need balance between their social emotional wellness and their academic wellness. So I hope you're beginning to expand your definition of success just a little bit. Now, what about the middle school brain? Your parents are middle school students, so their brain is still developing. Their prefrontal cortex won't be fully developed until they're around age 25. So you've got a lot of years left to develop and shape and steer their brain. Their brain is still developing in their ability to emotionally regulate and their ability to control their impulses and perspective taking. And if you can't shift perspectives with other people or understand someone else's perspective, it can be socially isolating. So is that a part of your definition of success, to make sure you're developing this part of their brain? They might have a heightened sensitivity to failure, peer pressure, expectations, and comparisons. And high-achieving parents very frequently, I'm going to tell you this because I hear and because I see a lot of GT and high-achieving students in my office for clinical care, very frequently, the expectations that you set for your children in their mind include some type of comparison. I am not as good as, or what if I don't do as well as? What if my performance isn't as strong as? So I love my high-achieving students because when I ask them what their definition of success is, they always give me something that would make you very proud. And then I say, okay, I got that one. That sounds a whole lot like your parents' definition of success. I get it. You know all the right answers. Good job. Now, let's set that definition aside. And I want to ask you what's your definition of success. And I want to bring in physical appearance, intellectual stimulation, emotional connectivity, social relationships, your spirituality and how you feel like you fit the universe. I want to bring in all of that and ask you your definition for success. And then they give me a completely different answer. So maybe tonight we challenge our definition of success as well to get back to balance. So as parents in the junior high years, you're moving away from direct instructional parenting, where you're teaching right from wrong. You're moving toward coaching. Are you ready? You got your whistle? Because it's time to really move into that coach role, to that advisor role. It's so fun now. My son just got into UT Law School, so he'll be starting UT Law School in the fall. And it was so fun because he went to UT Law School previews this past weekend, and I said, you have one major assignment. You need to find roommates because we can't afford to pay rent. We're going to have your own apartment. So find some roommates. So it was so cool because throughout the weekend, I'm getting, this is like what your 21-year-old is going to do. I know not right now. But I'm getting Instagram links to people's Instagram page for potential roommates. And I move into the coach role where he's like, do you think this person would be a good roommate? Do you think this person would be a good roommate? Why do you think this person might be a good roommate? Because. And it's so fun to just sit back and be in the coaching role. Whereas when my kids were in elementary and junior high, I was still saying, you were talking to who? Who is that? What's their last name? Who are their siblings? What do they do? What are their interests? Where do they go to church? Who are their parents? You move out of that role and into a coaching role, especially as you launch your kid into high school years. As a former high school counselor, I need to tell you something. If you hyper-manage your high school student when you leave, we all shake our heads. Because while you think you're protecting your child and setting them up for success, you're actually crippling them. Because a high school student needs to have that agency to be able to go to their high school counselor and advocate for their own needs. Because guess what happens when they enroll in college? They won't even talk to you. Oh, they'll take your money, but they will not even talk to you. I had to, every single semester before I moved our kids' living allowance into their account, I had to say, send me a screenshot of your grades. Because you're getting no money until I have a screenshot of your grades, because there's no Skyward at the university level, right? I didn't get to check their grades. I didn't get to check their attendance. Now, you can call them on Life 360 or find my iPhone and we can call them up and be like, you've been playing pickleball for 4 hours, go study. But the reality is they have so much autonomy once they get to the university level that if you didn't start training them for that at the high school level and the junior high level, they are going to get to the university and they are not going to have a clue how to manage themselves, their schedule, their life, and it's going to be a lot of costly mistakes to learn that. So get ready to coach. Ready, coaches? So I'm going to give you just a few quick strategies to help manage the stress of your students. First and foremost, normalize and reframe stress. Your high-achieving, your gifted students are experiencing more stress than you can ever even begin to imagine. And maybe you're starting to notice some signs and symptoms of that. But stress is not always harmful. It can actually enhance focus and performance. True GT children will drive you crazy because they will intentionally put things off to the very last minute so they can get an adrenaline rush that creates a strong focus. So yes, they can write that 2-page paper in 2 hours because that's how they train their brain. So all stress is not bad. We all sometimes utilize stress to help us perform at a higher level. But help them reframe, I'm overwhelmed with my body's preparing me to perform. So I do sports enhancing EMDR for some of my clients, and the idea is working with the accelerated programming, working with the adrenaline dump in your body. Because the more adrenaline we have, the better we perform. So we teach them that your body is preparing to excel. Your body is preparing to succeed. And use reflective prompts like, what is this stress trying to help me do? So the next time your kid is pushing your buttons, you hear it? Just want you to stop and say, I'm feeling really stressed right now. What is this stress trying to help me do? And remember, you transition into coach mode. You've got to be the coach. You still have the whistle, you still call the plays, but your kids have to have some independence and autonomy. So healthy stress versus overwhelming stress looks like this. Healthy stress motivates effort, builds confidence in short term, and it's very manageable. We utilize it, we like it. Overwhelming stress, getting into that risk zone, is when they begin to avoid things or shut down. When they're perfectionists and they really have this crazy driving fear of failure that's consuming or controlling them. When they start to have physical symptoms like sleep issues, stomach aches, headaches, they start underperforming. Not all stress is bad, but too much stress without support is harmful. So you have to teach, are we going to be able to make these slides available to the parents? Okay, you'll be able to get these for download later. You'll have everything, you can share it and use it. Remember this, too much stress without support is harmful. I started this slide by saying all your children are under a tremendous amount of stress, so all your children need a tremendous amount of support. Who's going to deal with that support? It's either going to be TikTok or you get with someone, right? And if you say, oh, my kid's not allowed to have TikTok, Heather, okay. All right, strategies to manage stress. Number 2, build recovery into high performance. All of us, we work as professionals, we get something called PTO. What is PTO? Paid time off. I want you to think right now about your junior high student. Do they get PTO? When do they have recovery time? When I would call my son when he was at A&M, I know that Aggies go to UT, it's crazy, but when I would call him and say, you've been playing football for 4 hours, you know what he would say? I can't study all the time, Mom. He was saying, I need a recovery break. I mean, 4 hours, we can negotiate that. 4 hours is a lot of pickleball, but he was taking a recovery break. Maybe he had a big test that day, or maybe he had a big test coming up. So recovery should be built into high performer schedule. High achievers often overfunction, and without recovery, they'll burn out. So teach stress and recovery equals growth, just like in athletics. I can train and work out really, really hard, and then I have to have a period of recovery. So I lift weights, but I don't lift weights for my arms every day, right? Because I need a recovery day. So I do arms like 3 days a week and have a recovery day in between. That's just a part of a healthy strategy. Now, when you're thinking about your definition of success, did you build recovery into the definition? So some strategies are things like scheduled breaks, making sure they have 8 to 10 hours of sleep for your middle school kiddos every night, and protect their downtime without productivity expectations. I hate to say this, but downtime is not clean your room, take out the trash, scoop the food. That is not downtime. Downtime is unstructured time, where they are literally have no expectations. It can be read a book for pleasure. Read a science fiction book that you're just reading simply for pleasure. It could be put together a puzzle. We have unplugged Saturdays in our house, so no technology from the time you get up on Saturdays until 3 p.m. in the afternoon, no technology. But it's completely unstructured, unplugged time. You can do anything you want to do. You can play with the dog, you can lie down and take a nap. You can't do laundry because that requires electricity. right? You can't do anything that's work. We need reset time. So I'm going to teach you a couple of quick techniques. Do you guys know about the Pomodoro technique? Built in on your computer, in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a little bell. If you click that little bell, it's a setup timer for the Pomodoro technique. So if you have true gifted students, high achievers who are trying to put things off, I really recommend the Pomodoro technique. You just set a timer. It can sound like this. I'm going to set a timer on my phone or on the microwave, and you're going to work for 25 minutes. During that time, you're going to focus on your task. You can't be on your phone, you can't be distracted, you can't be the dog, you can't talk to your sister, you've got to be focused. After that timer goes off, you take an unstructured break for 5 minutes. After 4 Pomodoros, you take a longer break, like 20 to 25 minutes break. So sometimes for my kids, they'll be like, can I watch a show? And so the answer is always yes. During your longer break, yes, you can watch a show. Especially if they have an overwhelming or daunting task, like a weekend project that they have to do, or a big paper that they have to research and write. Pomodoro method can really help decrease stress, and it helps them achieve a higher level of focus, especially for those brains that need a lot of stimulation. The next strategy, third strategy, is truth-based communication. This is all CASEL aligned. We want to focus on efforts, strategies, and growth, not just outcomes. It is very demotivating for someone who's putting forth more effort than they've ever put forward to get a lot of coaching and correction around their performance. So the CASEL strategy teaches us that we have to have a strengths-based approach to parenting, especially our high-achieving and gifted students. The amount of pressure that they put on themselves is unimaginable. And so when we come alongside them and compound that pressure on them, very frequently we think that we're helping drive them towards success, but in fact, we're causing psychological damage. I want you to think about the weight of that, because that feels heavy. Have I psychologically caused harm to my children by setting expectations that are so high and then not celebrating their effort? Well, the answer is yeah, you probably have, but we're going to buy Angela the heck out of this one. You do what you know until you know better, and when you know better, you do better. And as parents, we make mistakes, and we model healthy relationship skills when we make mistakes. I'm a therapist, my husband's a pastor, and I had to go and sit down with my kids and say, hey, I really blew it earlier. I lost my cool, and I said some things that were not healthy. I need to apologize. And my kids will say, it's okay, Mom, I forgive you. And I'll say, but I want to go back, and I want to talk about what I said and why that was inappropriate, because that was wrong, and I want to own that, and I know that had potentially caused you great harm. And I want you to know that I'm sorry that I did that. I made a mistake. I hope that you can forgive me. We can talk about this later if you need to. Just modeling. We all do that. So instead of, you got an A, your persistence and planning really paid off. So we're not only celebrating A's, but we're celebrating these character qualities that are going to translate into life. Let me tell you this, I go to work every day, and I work incredibly hard. But no one has ever given me a report card at the end of the day. Because if they did, I think I should get all A pluses. But I don't get that kind of feedback any longer, nor do you. So that has to come from an intrinsic reward, and get this, your child's inner voice is your voice. Are they going to hear, well, you just didn't try hard enough? Are they going to hear, it's okay, mistakes happen, regroup, refocus, get back at it. I know that you can be successful. You know what they're going to hear in their head? Whatever they hear from you guys. That's how important you are in their lives. So understanding your child's strength. This is the CASEL framework. Self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and self-management. All an important part of what you should be investing in for your child's emotional, relational success. Did you include any of these in your definition of success when you were considering what success looks like for your student? Because every single bit of this is required for success in school, at the university level, beyond the university level in higher ed, in partnerships and marriages, in families and parenting, in job placement and job advancement. People do care about your child's IQ, but on a day-to-day basis, they're interacting with their EQ as much as they're interacting with their IQ. And what employers historically tell us is they're looking for balance. They're looking for someone who has both social and emotional skills and intelligence. Did you include this in your definition of success? So what does balance look like? Does your child take healthy risks? Or do they always play it safe? Or do they take risks that you think are very unhealthy? Does your child recover quickly from setbacks? Or do you have to come up to the school and help them deal with their setback because they're undone because someone said something to them or did something to them or they didn't make the team or they didn't get on the club or they didn't get the grade they thought? Does your child recover from setbacks without you? Can they recover independently without you? If they haven't, put on your coach's hat and let's start coaching them through that. Do you see their confidence building as they're aging? Do you see that they're a little bit more confident now in 8th grade than they were last year in 7th grade? Do you see that they're a little bit more confident now than they were in 5th grade? Can you see that their confidence is building as they age? And last but not least, are they developing some independence? It's so fun now that I have older kids. My oldest daughter is 28, my twins are 21, and they'll look back at pictures and say like, Mom, why did you let me wear that? And I'll say, I was just trying to help you develop independence. They're like, I wear a headband to school every day for 3 years. Right, I was just trying to help you develop independence. So what are you doing to ensure that your child has space to make decisions? Because just a few years ago, we surveyed over 1,000 junior high students in a district in Houston, and we asked them, what decisions do you get to make during a school day? The overwhelming number one response was this: white milk or chocolate milk. That's a little scary right there. Making some important decisions in junior high. Now, if that's the most important decision your child's making in junior high, what's going to happen when it comes time to make course selections for high school? And no, the correct answer is not, I will pick their courses for them. That's not the correct answer. Rewind. The correct answer is, you'll coach them as they make those selections. You'll coach them through when they have a negative social interaction. You'll coach them through when they made a grade on a paper that they don't think is fair. Do not call or email your teacher until you've coached your child through that relationship. When my son was in junior high, he came to my husband and I one night pretty upset, and he told us that his junior high basketball coach was doing something that he felt was devaluing and disrespectful to them. We, of course, asked what it was. He kind of told us about it, and we said, you know what you need to do, Jacob? You need to go tomorrow to school, and you need to talk to your coach about that. And so we did a little role play where Dad was the coach, and he was himself, and we talked through what it would be like to approach the coach about that. The next day, he came home from school, and he said, guess what, guys? I talked to Coach. We're like, yeah, how did it go? I'll take prayer, right? Please don't get phone milk. And he said, Jacob, I am so sorry. I never knew that bothered you. Thank you so much for telling me that. I'll make sure that I never do that again. And Jacob said, thanks, Coach. That means a lot to me. No email from parents. No call from parents. Parents didn't go to the school, but I promise you that day my son grew a few inches. he began to stand up a little bit taller and had a little bit more confidence. Empower your children through coaching so that they can go to school and have agency and advocate for and take care of themselves. Because people are going to make fun of them if you're intervening in their relationships when they get to high school. So you've got to step back and trust that you've done a really great job. You're still in the sidelines, right? You're still in the sidelines. You still blow the whistle every now and then, but you've got to empower them to play this game. So there are 7 positive childhood experiences. So you've probably heard of ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. Well, I want to talk to you about the positive childhood experiences for just a minute. These are family support during difficult times. Notice that that word is support, not family takeover. It didn't say family takeover. It's a family support during difficult times. I love to believe that we've created a culture in our home where our son could come to us with problems without the expectation that we were going to fix it for him, but with the expectation that we're going to help support him through something that he viewed as difficult. Also taking part in community traditions, our cultural traditions, our faith traditions, even our neighborhood traditions, our school traditions become really important. I love to go to Walmart in different towns when I'm out and about doing trainings, and I love to see the different t-shirts, that are for sale at different Walmarts. It's whatever your high schools are, they're going to be for sale at that Walmart. That is a part of the retail community's job to support your traditions. Your child needs to know that they're a part of something, a part of a culture, a part of the faith, a part of the school community, and a part of the family. And they need to know that that means something. My youngest daughter, when she came to live with us, we had one simple rule for grades for her. She came to us when she was 12, so we had one simple rule, and that was that Lamberts, that's my last name, Lamberts do not get zeros. Because a 0 means you didn't even try. And if you get, this is my fun rule, if you get a 0 on the weekend, you get to do 0. It's catchy, right? So that was a family rule. I didn't say Lamberts get straight A's. I said Lamberts don't get zeros. That means we're always going to show up and contribute with effort. What's your family culture? What are your family rules? Whatever your last name is, what does that mean to your child? What do they know that is specific and unique to your family? And how does that relate to your definition of success? They feel safe and protected at home. That's their safe place. They want to be there. They enjoy it. They can't wait to be home. Being able to talk about their feelings with their family. Having other trusted adults outside of their family who care. That can be aunts or uncles. It can be neighbors. It can be older cousins or older siblings. It can be pastors and community leaders. It can be coaches. But we want as many people as possible loving our kids. So I want you to think about just how big is your circle and how can you make that circle even bigger? Who supports and cares about your child? And then we want them to feel supported by friends. Friends are not optional if you have time to get all your homework done. Friends are essential. I guarantee you that an out-of-balance child will underperform if they don't have social connections. One of the saddest, I was a high school teacher and counselor for 17 years. One of the saddest graduation commencement speeches that I ever heard from a valedictorian went like this. Hi, my name is Kennedy, and you don't know me because, well, I've been studying. That crushed me. Because he recognized that what it took for him to be valedictorian was sacrificing every single social connection. And I don't want that to be your child's commencement speech. Do you? Think about your own definition of success. And then a feeling and sense of belonging at their school. And that means they've got to have those social relations and they've got to have trusted, caring adults. Ask them, who's your favorite teacher? It's about to be Senior Sunday at my church, and one of the favorite things that my church does on Senior Sunday is they allow the senior to recognize someone in our congregation who's invested in them at a high level. Well, I love it because both of my twins picked their kindergarten teacher, Miss Cindy, to say, Miss Cindy, we've had her since we were in kindergarten, and she's been here all along the way. We want to give a shout out and a celebration to Miss Cindy. Thank you for investing in us at a level that was really important and meaningful to us all these years of school. And of course, Miss Cindy's crying, I'm crying, my son probably wasn't crying, but my daughter was crying, because that's what a sense of community looks like. Ask your kids. Besides Dad and I, besides Mom and I, who are the most important adults in your life? And get ready for them to share a list with you. And if they can't, coach them through that. What about your aunt? What about your grandmother? What about your great aunt? What about your neighbor? What about your student pastor? What about your coach? Start helping them develop the expectation for community.